Welcome, everyone. My name is Kimberly Bradley. I'm the Conversations Curator at Art Basel in Basel, and we wanted to end our programming on a lighter note. Looking at humor in art, we have two very funny artists with us. We could just start laughing right now. All the way to the end is Monster Chetwynd, based in Zürich. In the middle is Sophie Jung, a local Basel artist, and moderating our panel is Tom Morton, who may be the first person ever to take the stage from Rochester in the UK.
That's true, yeah.
Is it true? We will have time for questions at the end of the hour, and enjoy the conversation.
Okay, hello everyone. Thank you so much for coming, and thank you to Sophie and Monster for being here today. So the American novelist E.B. White once said that humor's like a frog. You can dissect it, but it kills it. And that's exactly what we're going to do today.
Yeah.
So I'm very, very delighted to have these two wonderful artists here tonight, this evening, both of whom I've worked with as a curator and written about, and who I admire for some overlapping, but for some very different reasons. And I love in Monster's work the extraordinary sense of the carnivalesque, the kind of buccaneering spirit, the way serious research is yoked to a very serious sense of fun.
Thank you.
And with Sophie's work, I feel she is, what really strikes me as a writer is what an extraordinary writer she is, as well as a sculptor and a performer. And the way, I think this is something that crosses both of your work, the way kind of excess and an extraordinary sense of the comic are yoked together to create something that's always surprising, that's always fresh. So I think laughter, where does laughter come from? Philosophers haven't done a huge amount of work on comedy, but they've done a little bit. So Thomas Hobbes said laughter comes from something he calls sudden glory, which is feeling superior to somebody. So he's the kind of punching down philosopher-comedian. Aristotle said it comes from incongruity, so the setting up of expectation and then the thwarting of that expectation. And Freud said that the reason we laugh is not because of these are repressed feelings coming out, it's the energy we use to repress those feelings coming out, this kind of siphoning off. And I think we'll kind of get into sort of some of the roots of laughter later on, but first of all, Sophie's going to treat us to a reading of her work. And Sophie, we have an image to accompany this.
Yep.
Shall I click through until we hit the right one?
Yep.
Okay, I can't see what's happening.
Stop. It's there.
Back?
No, continue.
Keep
Continue.
going.
Good.
Okay.
You can't see the screen.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I can if I turn around, yeah.
No, but there's one in front of you.
Ah, amazing, amazing. Okay.
Goes on and on and on. A bit more. Ooh. Ooh.
Here we go. This is
Oh,
fascinating.
no, you've gone.
No,
I
it's
think you've
good.
gone too far, though.
No, it's fine.
Yeah?
No, it's coming.
Back?
No. Continue.
Continue?
Yeah.
Here we go.
Yes. Back one.
Yes, there
That's
we
the
are.
one.
Bingo.
Good.
Thank you for your patience.
I thought since images don't really explain where the humor lies in my work, it's good to have some text examples. So it's just sections of texts that I write for my sculptures. So you're going to have to click a little
Okay.
bit more in a minute.
Sure, I'm
This
ready.
one wedged between two winged benevultures. I want to say benevultures, my flat front, a jagged sworddeal, or deal me, hand me the key concept, a scepter, I reign in this pose, it's child play, a fashion state meant my exit was blocked. It's temporary, fairy, flatterly possible that I will be rushed to the front page news. I am mollycoddled by two, impiously possible that I will be the spokesperson of son of spokes in the wheel of fortune out the voices. I trust my defenders. Behind my back a load of twigs all bundled up, it's kindlewood. It has no meaning. A fire planned to keep us warm and those who perish warmer. What can I say? a froze sensible to cast les autres in the role of the beast. My role is still in discussion. Until then, I hold my peace. Only mine, I'm afraid, only mine. I'm afraid of fists held high, testiculating wildly, accolades aids my cause, a waving fist versus a fist held up high, a moving fist versus a fist held still. We carry car ghost town ready to settle this argument to say the lads down the pub agree. We stick together, we stick it out, we stick with those whose jet this is. Remember what happened last time they asked for liberational to deny the right to live. A star fighter, a stuck. Fight her as she tries to leave. A classy move. Blocking all excite, move excite to be excite. So excited to be part of a work. Rhyme, a children's rhyme, a men's rhyme, a Heimatbrüder, Heimatbrüder. This is a section, I don't know, I feel like I've already taken up a lot of airtime, but if you want to click on how you feel.
Keep going, keep going.
Please, yeah.
You have to click the image, though.
Click a bit. Yeah. Stop. One back?
Back. Oh, yes, I recognize that one. Wonderful.
I'm just reading the epilogue to this one, if I find it. Everything that was said before doesn't matter. Epilogue. A rogue member of the troupe went missing the morning tune. No, the melody. Throw under the door to make sure the draft stays out. Don't draft the weaker ones away from the gangway. Stay clear. The air is filled with hazards. The heir to this fleet fleed a long while ago. She wants nothing to do with your casual murder. Her agency pools otherwise. I threw up. Don't know if you can see the... I threw up, and what came down, you wouldn't believe this spot. X marks the murder. Get off the tarm. Accidents are known to occur in this line of flight. Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to grieve the loss of our friend and colleague of her own demise. Said to her, move along now. I said nothing to see here. I said bile. I said bile. I said beileid, mein Beileid, which means as much as my sincere condole. Lens sharpened, gaze upward, feet in your own puke. Can't tell me that hasn't happened to you before. Wet footprints survived to tell the story of aeronautic death patrols. We're gathered here today to ignore the latest reports, closed, feet grounded, fleet ground details, the root cause, the roots. The roots are where resistance is this. Mile-high clubbed to death by similarly shaped peers that decide décédés to ignore the climates that chose to ignore this nor that, except loss of habit. At that rate, it's too late. Extract 1, Act 2, Act now, Act 3. Do not open your wings in flight. I have one more micro one. What do you
Micro one's
reckon?
good, yeah.
Click. When you see the foxes, you can stop.
No,
Maybe it's
that's
enough.
all my stuff.
Sorry?
Because those are my ones. You need to go backward, the other way.
So you want to get back?
Yeah.
They
Comes
roll.
around, yeah.
Oh, those are yours, no?
Yep.
Yeah.
It's almost that.
Oh, I see. Got it.
Okay, I think our
Never mind.
clicker's given out on us.
This is
so
good.
Would someone help us with this, please?
Oh, no,
from
it's on
the
again.
Sessions team, no?
It's fine.
All right, go on.
Good.
Okay.
That's it. Back.
Back.
Oh no, forward too. That's the one.
Perfect.
Foxes. I mean, it's not called foxes. I just say what they are, foxes. Dear, I can only hear you on my left ear. On my right, I mean, I'm me too. I mean, on my left, you said what? I didn't speak. Death does well to keep me silent. they laugh in memory. Tales intact, they beat to the beating once received, never shared, it was a gift. I can't feel my legs, but the rest of me is where the rest rests. While I lose that aim is to crack open the suture lines of brains that carry. Loss is what you make of it, has drained the air out of the harder pipes, the blood out of the softer ones unpumped. They reach for currency. Who wouldn't?
Great, thank you very much. Great.
Funny, not funny.
Would you like to contextualize those for us at all, Sophie?
I'm sorry, they were
Briefly
not
before we move
really
on
not
to
funny.
monsters practice.
I've got a lot of them that have stupid punchlines and things like that, but somehow it didn't feel right at the moment. So just maybe briefly to say how I work. I find objects and collect an archive, and then out of a temporary archive of junk or stuff, I build sculptures that somehow relate to each other, and then each sculpture gets, generally speaking, a text once it's done. So usually a day before the opening. When I have enough distance to sit back and think, okay, so what are you? And why do you make me laugh, or do you disturb me, or whatever? And the way I do it is by trying to think of everything and anything that I can think of, which with each object, color, texture, etymology, sound of the word, everything, so that these puns that are kind of the classic word game puns happen in between the sculpture and the text. So then I write out of this mind map the whatever it is that I feel the sculpture wants to push.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Thank you so much. And so, Monster, I'd like to move on to...
I've got a question for Sophie.
Oh, let's have that then. Yeah, brilliant.
I wanted to know whether you memorize the text or do you read it from like a piece of paper?
I read it really unsexily from my phone because I've got a really terrible memory, and also I write them really shortly before and then kind of immediately forget what any of it meant at the time of writing. So when I reread them, parts of the text, I reinterpret parts of the text as I read them, so every time I'm kind of stumbling through them, and I think if I'd memorized them, I would be too controlled.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I just wanted to ask.
No, it's brilliant, brilliant. Can I ask you to speak to us about the role humor, comedy,
Yes,
I don't know what term you prefer, plays in your practice?
Which are the ones you said?
Humor, comedy?
Okay. At the moment, I just got to get used to talking. I don't know if you two had to, because when I talk, my voice is not coming out of my mouth. It's coming out somewhere else. So it's quite confusing, isn't it?
It's a bit ventriloquist.
Yeah. So one thing I thought was maybe interesting immediately is that I don't necessarily work with text as a medium. I like mime is something maybe interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
But also I would say that I remember being a young artist back in the day. And I remember people saying to me, why do you use humor? And I found it very odd because it's so natural to me that I didn't understand that it had to be a choice and a medium. So that was something that I really remember quite significantly. And now it's different perhaps because now I don't know if I'm mid-career or where I am, in different places, but I would say that now I'm slightly allowed because of this reputation that no one asks me that question anymore. So I find it interesting maybe to be in the talk, which is about sort of analysing the use of humour in art and this kind of thing, and all the different breakdowns of different types of humour, like satire and all these different kinds of approaches. But I would say that I definitely was anarchically enjoying being unconscious, and that it was pointed out to me. That's something. And then also when I was in the process of art education, it was pointed out to me that I could research more heavily And I was introduced to this book that I've brought along, which is Rabelais and His World by Mikhail Bakhtin. And the reason I talk about it and bring it is because one of the things I found very handy with humor is that it can get marginalized and contained, and it's very handy to have a sizable theorist that you can refer to be a bit more like, hey, it's not just something to be pushed aside. There's incredibly intense and interesting arguments and theories and analysis. So I would say, yes, I'm not uncomfortable at all with this conversation. I've definitely been around, I know it, and I'm enjoying laughing a lot and having a lot of fun times within my work.
Wonderful. So I mean, something that I noticed with both of you is both of you in your different ways work with performance and with objects. Both of you work with space, or masses in space, and with time.
I didn't follow that last bit. We
So
work with
masses, volumes in space, yeah?
like big areas.
Or kind of objects in space, let's say, yeah?
Okay.
And both of you work with time. And it seems to me those two things have, are funny in very different ways. I mean, do you find are you more interested in, the humor of an event playing out over time, or the humor that adheres to an object? I mean, how do you think these two things are different?
Sophie can have this one, no? Because it's like, you really work with objects.
Yeah, you do.
No, I work with crappy handmade
Yeah, these are crappy handmade.
You work with proper objects.
I'm so glad you said they're constantly referred to as props.
Oh, really?
I mean, I try and
Oh, there's a
say
word.
they're not.
There's
they're
a word,
sculptures,
everyone. Props. Go on, though.
Yeah.
See if...
I mean, the sculptures feel more tragic, but then anyway, I think while I was thinking about this panel, I was thinking that humor anyway is not a clean category. It's always mixed with anger or tragedy or something, or vulnerability or something else. So the sculptures, to me, I don't want them to trigger laughter. That's not at all where they sit. They have to be complicated, uncomfortable objects. But if anybody was actually to take the time and sit in front of them and really think about what is going on, I think they have a similar structure to how humor works, which is to take something that a category, a thing in the world, a word, whatever, and you denaturalize it or defamiliarize it, whatever, turn it into something else and mix it with something that is incongruous to it, and maybe find something else that actually comes from a completely different realm and somehow makes sense again. And it makes sense while it actually shouldn't make sense. So maybe the function, or the way it functions is similar. But I think, using humor, not being funny, because I don't think I'm funny, but using humor in performance is obviously a lot more powerful, works a lot better. And
is that because you have time, comic timing? You have...
It's because I have time, and I have the option of, I can be together with people. We can become a team. Or I can make them think that we're a team, and then I can kind of confuse them in a way that they might not trust me to confuse them if we hadn't become a team. So all these different things of, cringe, self-deprecation, slapstick, everything. I try and use as many different forms of humor as I can.
We should click the clicker.
We should. Okay, so how many times?
I don't mind. We've been told that it's not to stay too static too long.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have to be
But I
really
liked what you
careful.
said. I wasn't putting it down, like by clicking the clicker.
That's good.
Yeah, it was good. It was impressive.
So, one of the things...
Wait, I've got an anecdote.
Okay,
Go on.
let's have an anecdote. Is it to do with Jabba the Hutt?
Are we all
or-
ready for an anecdote?
Sure, let's do it.
So it's a good one. I'll try and say it quick, okay? So I was working in an art college in Edinburgh, and I was walking down the corridors, and I was in the media department, and I wasn't employed to talk to people on other departments. And unfortunately, and I'm going to gender them, cis women came up to me, and they said to me, they were young girls, and they said to me, we would like to talk to you, but we're from the painting department. I was like, hey, I can't talk to you because I'm in the media department, but maybe we could make a workshop so that then somehow we could talk to each other. So they said that they wanted to talk to me because they wanted to put on a show in China. One of them was Chinese, so it's fair enough. But in China, about the female orgasm. And it's more than that, about the little death after orgasm. Okay, so this was what it was. They wanted to do a show in China about the female orgasm and the feeling of the petit mort. And I was like, well, that's pretty impressive. Let's definitely get together and talk. So a couple of months went by before we got to the workshop. When we got to the workshop, it was quite shocking to me because they'd allowed some guys into the group. So I'm gendering again. So this was some, what do we call them? Men. I don't know. Anyway, not cis women. But and anyway, what happened was that the show about the little death in female orgasm had shifted to objects in space.
Amazing.
No. Let two
That's
guys
quite
in. Let
quite
two
a swing
guys
there.
in. Yeah. But that was it. We can move on now.
Wonderful. So, I mean, one of the things this, you guys in the audience will have seen the sort of opening paragraph. You want to click? Shall I give this to you so you can click? And I
can see
do my
it.
bits?
Because I can see. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
This is a stimming device. It's really good. If you don't want to click, I can just constantly do it.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll
It's
just-
meant to be like a pet, I think.
It will calm me down.
Go on.
Like a Tamagotchi.
Yeah.
Keep it alive.
It's for the audience. It's for your stimulation. What was the sorry?
So the
go
question is this.
Yeah. It's to the audience.
Description, one of the tasks, one of the propositions we've been asked to discuss today is the current art world establishment tends to disregard humour. Now,
I
mean,
can't hear you. I can't hear you.
You can't. Shall I go more
No, just
slowly?
say
Or?
it. Yeah, talk more slowly.
Okay. The proposition, one of the propositions we've been asked to discuss today, is the current art establishment.
Okay, art establishment was the word I missed. Okay.
Tends to disregard humour.
Tends to disregard humour.
Okay. So, and I was interested in the sort of subtext that seems to be there.
Comes up in this book.
Comes up in this.
It
Brilliant.
warns you about it. Go
Okay,
on.
so if we can park Rabelais for a minute, then we can go back to him. So this seems to suggest that there was a kind of golden age not so long ago where humour was a lot more acceptable, a lot more foregrounded in the contemporary art world.
At the time of the 1970s performances by Marina Abramovic. I don't think so.
Well, this is, I mean, what the vibe I got from this, and it's
Oh, go on. When was the golden age of humour and art?
I mean, it didn't say, but
Shall we make it? Go on, that's hilarious. So go on.
for me, the subtext was that, perhaps in the 90s to noughties,
Yeah.
kind of
Hard to
Mauricio
believe.
Catalan's, like, a really big star, this kind of moment. That this was a moment where humour was a lot more valued. And the other subtext seems to be that perhaps the reason for this is artists, collectors, curators, institutions are more cautious now of causing offence through humour. The world's too calamitously awful that this seems like a kind of paltry response to the sort of various catastrophes that are currently in play.
I mean, if you say that, we need to go home now.
Well, I mean, this is not something I'm claiming, but it's something we've been asked to discuss.
Okay.
So, I mean, do we think this is true?
No,
No.
not at all. No. There's lots of funny artists
Yeah.
all the time. It just depends what kind of humor you're looking at. If you look at the really straightforward there's not even slapstick, just lol humor. That was the 90s.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really happy that's over. But then, I don't know.
I don't know. I'm not aware of a period that you're talking about, and I can't say that I've noticed when I look at art history that there's a specific moment. If I'm allowed to keep referencing the Rabelais,
Oh, please do. Yeah.
it would be before the Renaissance. Mm-hmm. It would be medieval. Medieval time had the allowance to have farting and rolling around on the floor, and all the sort of ridiculousness of humour was not separated from things of worth. Mm-hmm. And I would say that that's a long time ago. Seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about a more recent period when humour was allowed. I don't think it's been allowed in for a long time. And also, we're the bloody last ones. Excuse me. The humour is allowed at the end of the talks.
Plus, I have to say, as something light, I love the panel and I love talking about humor, but I would say, I mean, humor is anything but light. But then, yeah, there was I mean, no offense. No, I'm not going to say not going to name any names, but there were a lot of male artists making sort of chuckle artwork.
Yeah.
That, was maybe the 90s and noughties. But I was thinking, because you mentioned that, and I was thinking about who my favorite artists are, and I hadn't even thought of them as funny artists, but they're all funny who work right now. I think Diego Marcon or
Yeah, very funny.
Is really funny. Jesse Darling's funny, not funny, but humorous. For sure. It's just in the cracks of their practice. It's not, or kind of at the base. It's not. Laugh out loud funny, and then
I feel
all the feminists
genuinely a paranoia of not being taken seriously if you work with humor. It's really well known.
Yeah.
So, I would say yes.
I had a similar thing at art school that I was told by a very reputable artist that I have to be careful not to become the stand-up comic of the art world.
So interesting.
And where do you think that comes from?
But wait, hang on, because that's classic. How do you feel about it now? Do you feel like you're waving the flag?
Well, first I thought, oh yeah, you're right. No, I do not want to be that. And then I think a few weeks or months after already, I thought, no, but I mean, there's nothing that I like more than stand-up comedy. Plus, there's no reason not to be that. This particular person, it was also the early or mid-noughties. Well, not mid-noughties, thought that theatricality in the arts was
another no-no.
Was an absolute, absolute no-no. So anyway, we weren't on the same page. But I think the problem is that humor is, seen as something light and something inconsequential, when actually it's an extremely, it's a really good device to trick an audience into critical thinking without already pulling up a wall of resistance before you even start. It's really,
So I mean, I guess two kind of thoughts to kind of go in that. I mean, it seems within the contemporary art world that the kind of humor that tends to be valued most tends to be satirical, political, rather than slapstick, say, or puns. Or there seems to be a kind of hierarchy of humor that's to kind of do with its social or political utility, which I think is kind of interesting. I mean, would you concur with that?
I was going to say that the fact that I even have a career and I'm sitting here I would say the art world actually is a very generous and open platform.
Okay.
And I've had a rip-roaring career, in my opinion. I can only just about keep up with it. and that's pretty impressive. That, I mean, definitely I'm more convoluted than doing satire or something that can be so easily contained. Sure, I can be considered entertaining, which is potentially a seductive way of working, I understand that. But I think it's whenever I look at how you can complain and say, oh, there's an art world and they have a certain, I don't know what to say, fashion that's dominating. But actually, when I look at the fact that I've been given a lot of opportunity, then how can that be if you're saying that? Do you see what I'm saying?
Sure.
And we're being invited to talk here. So personally, I think it's, I know this sounds really as if I am a freedom fighter or something, but I personally think that you can bring whatever you want to the art world. It is a good platform. And it's just that you have to literally remember and do it, personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, so no problem. Like, I don't think you have to decide that there's a dominating message or type. Yeah, I don't think so.
So I'm kind of interested then, I mean, how do you kind of value laughter as a response to your work? I mean, I'm not someone who makes art, so, I don't know how this feels.
Cool.
I mean, I can only imagine there's something immediate about laughter that must be satisfying in a way that it's very hard to persuade someone that something's funny against their better judgment. You'd be better off persuading them something was meaningful or politically charged. But there's something that seems to resist any kind of strong-arming about laughter.
I mean, sometimes if people don't laugh in my performances, I'm devastated. And not because I want to entertain, but because that's actually the tool I use. So I feel like it didn't function. And at times I even have, I'm giving away my tricks, but I have moles in the audience that have to laugh. Like 2 or 3 friends that I had one today, but she didn't come. She was supposed to point and laugh at me. Okay. But not because, I mean, not really because I want the validation of being funny, but because I think what you say, the kind of directness of laughter, I think if, you know, in the art world, whatever this art world is, but very often there's a large group of professionals that want to stand in front of an artwork and understand it. I think this desire to understand an artwork is...
Good for them. And good for that. I pat them on the back.
But no, I don't want. But do you want your work to? No.
Wait, I've got another anecdote. Am I allowed to just chip them on in? Am I allowed to wedge them in?
I have to finish
this
my
picture,
thought,
this picture inspires it. That's why, because I can't stop looking at it. Well, basically, it was in the most disgusting tunnel. And there were no toilets. It was raining the whole time in the tunnel. It was so stressful. And it was in Bergen, and I had a small son with me at the time, my son, and he was really young. He was about, I don't know how old he was, maybe 3 years old. And he was really like not happy, and we had to do this performance, and I just had to give him something that would pacify him. And we had some creme caramel pots, but we didn't have a spoon. And there was no label on the creme caramel pot, and we had some brushes that were like those square ones, you know, the brushes that are quite wide. So I gave him a brush and the creme caramel, and he sat eating steadily through four I think, creme caramels. But this poor organizer saw it, and she thought that he was eating glue.
Oh my God.
So she ran up to me in the whole of the thing and was screaming that my son was eating glue. And for me, it's things like that are just, you put together all these ingredients, and then just the chaos of the extra over-spilled energy of not managing makes me nearly die, to be honest. I don't know. I want to be like that all the time. I'm not allowed. It's been explained to me many times. It's not allowed.
It's not allowed. There you go.
So I'm going to hit you with some Henri Bergson from Laughter.
Wow,
which
okay.
is his first proper full-length philosophy book to be written on humour, apparently. However spontaneous it seems, laughter always implies a kind of secret Freemasonry, or even complicity with other laughers, real or imaginary. How often has a remark been made that many comic effects are incapable of translation from one language to another?
Say again.
Okay, the whole thing again?
No, just read really slowly, though. You have
Okay.
because it's hard.
Yeah.
However,
It's the microphone.
I mean, these guys can probably hear fine, but it's really echoing, isn't it? However spontaneous it seems, laughter always implies a kind of secret Freemasonry, or even complicity with other laughers, real or imaginary. How often has the remark been made that many comic effects are incapable of translation from one language to another? And I'm reading this out to introduce 2 things, really. One is that the idea of an artwork's kind of potential to elicit kind of universal laughter.
Sure.
You know, beyond kind of culture.
Yeah. Like, can we
beyond
mention Charlie Chaplin?
I mean, amazing, yeah.
Good example.
Absolutely. Buster Keaton, this kind of...
Love
or
him too.
Mr. Bean. I mean, Mr. Bean is the most... not my thing, but the most popular comic creation of all time across the globe.
Is that it?
Yeah. The most successful in terms of, people reached, money earned.
Really?
Really, yeah. Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean. And the second thing I was kind of thinking of around Freemasonry was artists who make funny work, satirical work, about both arts that kind of is about what the limit conditions of an artwork can be. So, think about, Duchamp would be an example, Or artists who satirize the art world. And I'm kind of, are art world satires something you prefer from outside the art world or from inside the art world? There's been quite a rash of satires recently in film, literary novels. that have taken the art world as a subject to laugh at. You know, I'm thinking of
okay.
the Square, I'm thinking
Yeah,
of
it's like
Art
Bedware
Basel,
Williams,
or
Bedware Williams drawings. Even.
Yeah.
I guess he's a kind of inside
Who
the
I
art world
love.
guy,
I
or
love him.
Martine
I'm so
Sims would be another example.
Yeah. But can I just, I'm sorry, I need to unpack a little bit what you're asking. Is it a little bit to do with private jokes? Because when you,
Yeah,
and also
so-
you didn't say the date. When's it from?
It's from 1900.
Okay,
the
well, maybe you
book's
did.
in,
I didn't hear it.
Yeah, yeah.
But if it's about the sort of private joke thing where people laugh and you feel left out, I'm not into that, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm totally annoyingly inclusive, like the bonding thing. I'm
Yeah.
into that. If we had to clarify.
Absolutely. I mean, I think, you know, from your work, anyone who knows your work
Probably
well,
know.
you know, the idea of this kind of temporary kind of micro community.
Yeah, it's meant
incredibly
to be
important.
contagious. It's meant to be contagious and fun, not contagious and frightening. But go on, you maybe have a different comment.
No, I'm, to be honest, I'm not that interested in the art world satirizing itself.
Uh-huh.
I mean, when it comes from the outside, it's a little bit what some of my friends think the art world is, which is
Yes.
frustrating because, you know, there is value in these weird things that we do, and it's easy to make fun of
Of
it. And when
course.
it comes from within, I think, well, there are more important things to talk about than the art world. I don't know.
Does it feel
wait.
kind of self-satisfied?
Yeah.
If it's, you know,
Can I clarify again? Are we talking about that amazing film, The Square?
I mean, that's
Is that
one
a good
example.
Has everyone seen The Square?
I have not.
Because if you haven't, you need to leave the room and go and watch it now. It's so good. You haven't? No. Oh my God.
I'm gonna go.
Oh my God, it's so good. It's so good.
I love the director. It's the,
Oh,
the
right.
same person
Have you
who
seen
did
the Avalanche?
Triangle.
I haven't seen the Avalanche.
It's amazing.
Oh, I've heard
amazing.
it's good. I've heard it's good.
Yeah.
Ooh. But that representation of the it's amazing. It's amazing.
I mean, I'm kind of always interested in Velvet Buzzsaw because they make a critic incredibly powerful, which seems kind of like, you know, the biggest joke of all in that, yeah? But
I like Big Eyes for that as well. Have you seen Big Eyes?
No, I haven't, no.
Tim Burton, Big Eyes? No, it's good. It's good.
Okay.
Very, very witty. Yeah. Oh, let's stay on
Great.
this one for a bit. Let's stay on yours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm interested. I mean, I know you teach Monster, and Sophie, have you been teaching recently?
Yeah, tutor.
Is there any kind of sense in which you feel, spending time with younger artists, the humour that's coming through in their work is in any sense generational?
Must be, because I haven't noticed any.
Very good.
We're allowed to laugh at our own jokes,
I
hopefully.
mean, I think it's hard at the moment to legitimize humor. So you have to really think through what humor is and really see it as a
Right.
a tool for resistance or at least critique. Otherwise, it feels tone deaf. So,
Yes.
but then I think if once it becomes clear that it's not funny, haha, but that going back to your previous question of what happens when someone laughs, it is a visceral response to something that you might otherwise not even let into your very fixed understanding of the world, right? Humor always, not always, but the humor I'm interested in breaks categories or kind of, creates opposites that coexist that shouldn't be able to coexist, and therefore it means that other things can coexist that shouldn't be able to coexist, which means that the whole structure of language and how we understand the world isn't as stable as it should be, and
Yes.
that is an extremely strong tool. I mean, if you use humor in how it functions rather than entertain people. So I think I encourage it a lot, but not to entertain, but to try and understand its function and how you can trick people into getting away from their super rational and super controlled
Lives.
and kind of
Sort of neural
situation as
pathways or something, or is it to kind of knock their thinking onto a slightly different track?
Exactly. And also their position as someone who looks at a work and tries to make sense of it. So it's okay to not make sense of it. It's okay to not rationally understand it, and therefore control it or be in charge, and then in general it's
But I know,
okay to
I
not
know
be
something
in
I would
charge.
say with this sentence is if I'm using humor as a tool, I've got to say the usual thing I say is I'm very manipulative, but I'm not malevolent.
Yeah.
There's nothing I'm doing with the power of making people feel at ease and like relaxed and taking their armor off. Other than FUN, I'm totally into fun and having a nice time and not having to, just a little bit respite, kind of. I know what you're saying, and if I am an evil, over-the-top, manipulative director, which I have been, has been explained to me, various techniques I use, and I would say then yes, but I would absolutely, the next sentence is I'm not into the cult, I'm not into any kind of extended power game, I'm into the short fun of a performance that lasts 20 minutes, 4 hours at the longest, no strings attached, and there's nothing malevolent. On my side, I don't know, you have to clear yourself, but I'm clearing
No, I
myself.
think I'm malevolent. No, and also, yeah, I think it's not a respite. I think it works differently.
You think it continues?
Although I love that kind of work, but I think mine is people often leave frustrated because they didn't understand or they didn't. It was too fast and things overlapped and they laugh also often. I think out of frustration because there's no other response.
Oh wow. Wow. Ooh.
I don't know. Is my feeling, no?
I mean, that's also that's a, if laughter is a visceral thing, that's a very particular kind of visceral laugh, isn't it? Yeah. So I think before we take some questions from our lovely audience.
I've got some annoying thing to share that I've been holding on to it, waiting.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead, please.
It's my relationship with teaching.
Yes.
Because you mentioned teaching.
Yes.
So I've read the Count of Monte Cristo. Oi, oi, oi. I have not read it, friends.
It's a great spin.
Has anyone read The Count of Monte Cristo? Has anyone read The Count of Monte Cristo? It's an amazing book. I'm a big Alexander Dumas fan. I've read the biography of his grandfather too. It's really good. But the thing I'm trying to get to is that in The Count of Monte Cristo, there's a character who's a grandfather who's meant to be completely paralyzed, and he has a granddaughter, and he's an old kind of swordsman, and he, at some point, is convinced they're going to get poisoned. So he makes his granddaughter and him take a little bit of poison, and so they become immune when they are poisoned, because it's a very backstabbing world. Yes. My relationship with teaching is like that. I think of it as taking a little bit of necessary poison. So I do teaching, and I'm suffering at times, sometimes very inspired. But the main thing is, in my opinion, you don't get the same kinds of conversations or spiky problematics in the normal art world. Normally, everyone has such an agenda. They don't speak their mind, and you don't actually get a kind of gritty conversation or you're not treated like a punch bag, or you're not treated in various ways that would lead you to have a certain kind of thinking. So I personally think of it like the Count of Monte Cristo's character that takes a small amount of poison. That's all. That's it.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Yeah, I could imagine a sort of performance
It's not meant
coming
to be funny. That was not meant to be funny.
So moving on to something that is funny.
Okay.
I'd like to ask you, before we have questions from our wonderful audience, what do you find funny? I mean, whether that's artworks, whether that's stand-up comedians, whether that's literary novelists.
I love stand-up comedians. I love
So
also
who?
artwork.
Give us, I mean, it's kind of, this is wonderful kind of playlist we're getting from you guys.
I prepared artists. I didn't prepare comedians, but Tommy Cooper, Andy Kaufman, obviously.
Andy Kaufman.
Stuart Lee. These are all men. This is annoying. So I have to go to artists. Carolee Schneemann, I think, is hilarious. Pippa Garner is incredible.
Is her kissing cats meant to be funny?
I don't know if they're meant to be funny, but the Interior Scroll is hilarious.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would have thought that was a serious work.
Which one now?
The scroll.
But did you read what it says on the scroll?
No.
It's a letter to this filmmaker. It's a message to this filmmaker. It's hilarious. It looks like an angry
That's interesting. Your relationship with
feminist
text and the
performance.
image, I can imagine that that makes a lot of sense. Really.
It's the way she tells them.
Huh?
It's the way she tells them.
Yeah, what else is funny? I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I've got a list. I
Cows.
wrote-
Great.
Cows are funny.
Cows.
Yeah, cows.
Cows, yeah.
When you asked me earlier, the first thing I thought was cows are funny. Yeah.
Am I meant to read it out?
Go.
Oh,
Yes,
sorry,
please.
I thought you guys were talking amongst yourselves. So I think recently, I was trying to think what's made me really like be excited or die laughing recently. And it's definitely the young ones, If anyone, I can pass it around. You can feel the DVD box. And then also, I was going to say, it's lots of British humor, but also a lot of, I love Chinese action. And Stephen Chow, I think, is a living genius. So if you know Stephen Chow, I can see someone nodding in the audience. Stephen Chow, just explain it. One tip, for example, is every time there's a CGI or computer-generated part of the film, it's included and given a nod to the audience with a kind of joke. It's like it's a self-conscious introduction, whereas loads of filmmakers just use CGI as if we're all not meant to notice, kind of. But so I would definitely reference him. I like, at the moment I'm reading Terry Pratchett for my sins. It's called Discworld series, and there's 40 books. I'm on number 4, you know what I mean? I've been re-watching Monty Python's Flying Circus. There's a part of one of the actions is about a Scottish poet who is writing poems about the price of a stamp. And maybe you have to have lived in Scotland to get it, but I have nearly died laughing over those. I'd also say, interesting you said Jeeves and Wooster, because I've been listening to the audio from 1973 of What Ho Jeeves, and it has a very specific British humour that's, to be honest with you, very cleverly slices through the class system and cheers you up no end, isn't it? It's quite an interesting one. And I was going to bring up some other things that I found interesting, like, I don't know if you know Sooty and Sweep. You probably have to be British to know who Sooty and Sweep are, but they are so rubbish. They're these hand puppets for children, but there's an adult level that's
I mean, they
layer.
look like Mike Kelly sculptures. They're really unfortunate
Kelly's
looking
a good
things.
one to bring
Mike
up.
Kelly's a very funny artist. Yeah.
Oh my God. Tony Ursula's a good one for the early films. Yeah, very nice. Yeah, I don't know. I like Richard Pryor. I like Steve. I don't know, just such ridiculous. I like Goldie Hawn. I like so many. I like Mae West. And then I wondered if it's really controversial to mention Jewish humor, but I love the Marx Brothers. And I really love Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, all the early ones. And we even watch a lot of Laurel and Hardy at home. So there's a lot of comedy flowing through my eyes.
Larry David.
Larry David's amazing. Curb Your Enthusiasm, totally. And also, hang on, back to the earlier ones.
Sorry, I just have to say people.
Oh, there you go.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at the risk of this kind of devolving into just being in the pub and saying, no, that's fine, that's fine. Thank you. You have walked away with an amazing kind of bibliography or filmography of humour now. And so I'd like to thank you too, and then we'll pass it over to our audience. I don't know if there is a person here in the white with, and another one, wonderful. So do we have any questions from anybody? Yes, we have somebody there with a pink wristband on.
Hello. Oh yeah, this is disorienting. Okay. So I'm a student. Forgive me if this question is a little bit blunt. So I've been making paintings that are a little bit different from how I've been making paintings in the past. And I've been fly on the walling in exhibitions to kind of see people's responses to them. And the most recent has been like, people kind of walk up to the piece, they look at it, they laugh, they read the title, and they go, oh, that's fucked up. And I love that. I mean, for me, that feels incredibly exciting and successful. And I only bring that up because we're kind of talking about laughing with versus laughing at, and also this kind of code switching that humor kind of takes on, because not everyone finds everything funny. And I was just curious if we could kind of dial in on that, and if the two of you could speak a little bit more about, specifically relating back to your individual practices, if you're at all like interested in engaging with that sense of power dynamic and that kind of the ways in which humor can kind of lead us into those more serious I think what you're talking about, like kind of tricking people into thinking harder, thinking more critically, and just, you know, maybe challenges along the way in terms of like struggling to communicate that to an audience, or how you've kind of worked through that if that's a concern for you. But yeah.
Sounds like, Jean?
Yeah. That's that's exactly the thing I want to get to, a laughter and then that's, if that happens, it's the most successful work I could make. I'm sure there are other ways of getting people to think, but somehow, because it's just how I function through self-deprecation and silliness, but I'm also, I think the only thing worth talking about is anger. You know, actually, all I want to express is my anger, but not in an angry way, but through humor. So it's kind of a balancing or negotiating through those two emotions, and also figuring out where I can. It's kind of I'm a very didactic person, but I try and be anti-didactic in how I do it. So through getting an audience or a person to engage with the work by laughing, it's immediately they've taken it on. It's now in their body, and then they can do with it what they want, and it's actually up. Yeah, it's in their the ball's in their court, and if then it resonates in them for a little bit longer, they will have to engage with what clearly isn't funny in the whole thing. So, I mean, congratulations for that response, for having. Yeah. I think it also works, to be honest. It's not a weak tool.
And do we have any other questions from our audience? So there's a gentleman there. Brilliant, thank you.
Yes, hi. So I guess I'm coming from sort of the opposite side of the perspective. I did comedy professionally for several years back in North America. And so what I'd be really curious about, especially from the performance side, what you guys do, I'd love to know kind of when you're informing and building out these sort of performances, how much of that is being informed by the background and experience in the art space, and is there any influence that you guys have from maybe like a live comedy or other kind of material that you've just mentioned, and kind of curious about the overlap there?
That's a hard question. You can do it again.
I start and then.
Oh my God.
I'm probably not answering it cleverly enough, but just when I finished school, I moved to Edinburgh for a while, and I just went to the comedy club almost every night. And not that I think about that a lot, but I think that together with watching avant-garde theatre, which is, the absurdist theatre, basically, Ionesco and Beckett and all of that, which I also, I had to watch it as a kid, and I thought it was hilarious, and I still think it's very funny. So I think it's those two things that probably, somehow.
I mean, Beckett could be funny. I don't know.
Yeah.
I have to answer too? You sure? I was thinking, it kind of answers both questions together, is that I don't know, it's such a bad thing to say, but I wonder if I would personally just be happy, like as if I work for Dionysus, like I just have some natural inclination to be light and buoyant and atonic, and I don't know how to say it, it happens. And so then, like, I wonder if I would be happy just being an audience. Does it make sense? If I could just all the time find the combinations that kept me in the point where I could barely breathe because I'm laughing so hard I can hardly breathe, which has happened to me recently. It's a couple of things where I was like literally going, I can't breathe because I was laughing so hard. I think I would be that. I mean, I'd be in the ignorant happiness box, which is such a confusing thing to say and admit to, because most of my time is not glamorous. It's spent really hard working to make the moments of gesture happen. Mm-hmm. And I am dedicated to it. I will do it for the rest of my life. I will make it seem effortless and work really hard, always. It's just such a hard one. And I think that I don't want to do the thing that's the more conventional one where you stand up and tell jokes. The only place I've ever wondered about was lesbian clubs, which does seem appealing. There's an appeal there. I'm maybe thinking of running a kind of night actions club in Zurich.
Oh, can I mention Weirdo Night, Dynasty
There you go.
Handbags Weirdo Night?
Go on, mention
know
more. No, mention.
No,
One.
that would be
Say.
a very good example.
Is it here?
It's in LA, but it's
Okay.
amazing.
Okay.
It's a stand-up, queer stand-up
Yeah,
comedy night.
could be fun.
Yeah.
I think I would feel at home in some places like this, but I'm not. What I noticed was when I said I was really into stand-up comedy, I got some really vicious guys heckling me in conversation, so that I couldn't even talk. And I remember thinking, "Oh, that's not for me." And I like making the situation. I like a little bit like conjure a situation where most people are surprised or disarmed or this kind of thing. And that I don't know if that fits into the conventions of stand-up comedy. It's hard to explain that, yeah.
Sorry?
And also I was going to say, this is a bit ridiculous because it's not relevant, but I was thinking about what makes me repeatedly nearly die laughing is a thing on YouTube which is a serious documentary about Neanderthals' voice, what Neanderthals would sound like. But the thing that's unbelievable is the person who's a specialist on the thorax or whatever has got hold of a poor actor, and the actor, they keep saying, no, high-pitched and loud, and so by the end the person's going, and every time I watch it, I just, when you're just like nearly dying. So I don't know what to say. It's such a hard one. Mm-hmm. It's such a hard one because I need the morale boost to keep being political so you don't have activist burnout. And so you end up taking the warmth and the humor very seriously to nurture that. And maybe you hit a perfect cycle. There we go. Answer. Go on, what were you trying to say? Sorry.
No, I was just going to mention, obviously stand-up, but then there's also, things like improv comedy or sketch comedy, and obviously that's where you start to, in my view, skew into that realm a little bit more.
Which I listen to a lot. I listen to Just a Minute and things like this all the time, actually. That's interesting. Yeah, I'd say yes. Yeah, I love it. Do you? Or you?
I love
More
really
stand-
bad improv. I love the cringe. We haven't talked about cringe, but I'm a huge fan of cringe, so yeah.
As in generally, or is it a thing?
No, generally.
I've got the tweet. No, there's a tweenie.
As a emotion.
Tweenies say they're going to hit the cringe button now. I've been hanging out with some tweenies, everyone, but they all say, "Oh, I'm going to hit the cringe button. The cringe button." So it's really good.
Awesome, thank you.
Great. Do we have any more questions?
We should wait. We should hope that you're an undercover scout and that you're going to sign us up.
Brilliant. We have a gentleman at the back.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a question for Monster. Why can't men be in a group show about the female orgasm?
That is a damn good question.
It's actually a joke. My real question is, so like about 10 years ago in New York, there were these like queer experimental comedians like Ana Fabrego and Julio Torres, who are now on television, but they would get invited to perform at art spaces. And so I was wondering if there is or has been anything similar in Britain or Europe.
That's interesting. Does television means you've made it? Yeah. I don't know. Such an interesting one. Why are we stuck in the art world, Sophie?
Yeah, I don't know.
Or even teaching.
See, I thought I just formed a country band to get out of the art world, but I don't think it's going too well. But I mean, maybe doing stand-up for television could be. I don't think so.
I don't know. I really. What can I say? I've been having so much fun. I haven't noticed. Maybe that's the answer. Do you know what I mean? Go on. You're poised.
I had the thought the other day that Jessie Darling should be cast on Taskmaster. I think that would be really great for everybody, but who knows if that would ever happen.
I think Jessie's gonna move into different realms for sure. Mm-hmm. We just have to wait and see.
Wonderful. Thanks so much. So if we don't have any more questions from the audience, and I don't see any hands, can we thank Monster Chetwynd and Sophie Jung for being extraordinary and very, very funny? Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.